Good morning, Soul Embodiment Tribe. Brigette, Patton here, just bringing a message from Spirit. So, one of the themes that I've been noticing lately, and always with my clients, has to do with our sex lives and orgasming. And what does it have to actually do with our spirituality? How is it connected to what we are able to bring forth into the physical world? And so, a lot of the time, I find it really interesting that as human beings, people want to leave part of our humanity out. Like when we're talking about spirituality or manifesting or how things are connected, people will shy away from certain topics or subjects that make them uncomfortable. And that's human nature. That's normal. That is part of our survival mechanism. It's also part of what happens when we're in society. You know, we're in society and we take on viewpoints and perspectives externally from, how society is behaving. And so when we're talking about those specific things in particular, it's important to understand that it's absolutely connected to being able to manifest and bring things into the physical world. And the reason why is because in order to be in alignment with source energy, in order to allow for the abundance and the flow of that vibrational frequency, when I'm talking about vibrational frequencies, all I'm referring to is a sensation or an emotion that we can feel inside of us. I'm not going to dive too deeply into that because that's a whole nother rabbit trail I could go down. If you guys want to hear more about that, you can pop questions in. I'll do a live video about that later. So when we're talking about how our vibrational frequencies and our emotions are able to receive, it is absolutely directly related to the pleasure centers in our body, because pain and pleasure, you may know this, you may not know this, are very closely related in the brain's processing centers. Like the way the brain processes pain and pleasure is very closely related. So our ability to receive pleasure in multiple areas of our life is directly related to the capacity in which we are able to manifest and bring things into the physical world. And our sexuality and orgasm can really open our eyes to belief systems that are inside of us just around receiving pleasure in general. And so one of the things that can prevent you from really having that connection can be control. I mean, it's always about control. Are we surrendering to the heart, or are we allowing our mind that only stores the past, doesn't store the future? Yes, we have the imagination of our future there, but that the future isn't what goes into our subconscious programming. The past is what goes into our subconscious programming. And so that's why it's really difficult for people to realize they have resistance in their subconscious mind without even knowing it consciously, because it's two different parts of the brain. They're not, they possibly are not completely wired to work together yet with the emotions of the body. And so when you aren't able to fully surrender and release, because that's what happens when you're orgasming, you're releasing a large amount of, I almost said a large amount of money, but I mean, it's the same energy center. Money and sex are directly related. So when that energy is moving through your body, if you're not able to receive it at that level, that can prevent you from really being able to have that free surrender during lovemaking with your spouse or, with your partner, however you want to use the language. I don't really care. It's all the same thing to me. So when you're connecting with somebody, another being on an intimate level like that, it can really illuminate the resistance that's inside of your body with creating. Because the fact is, when we're creating, we really do require working with other human beings. And when we get to a certain level, it doesn't matter how much inner work you've done, when you start to interact with other people, it's going to trigger them. It's going to trigger you. And so when you're unable to get there in your sex life, it's illuminating a control issue, an issue inside of your body, a protection. Maybe there's shame or guilt around it. And all of these things will actually prevent you from being able to manifest things into the physical world, because that's part of our creator energy. That's part of the energy that we connect with in order to create. And one of the things that I work with my clients on is being able to really connect with those emotions and understand what they're really communicating. Because the truth is, we have these abilities to create with other humans, not just with sex, but even in projects. It's a very similar sensation of satisfaction when you work on a major project with somebody, and you may not be intimately, physically connecting with them, but you work on a project and it impacts a lot of people, for example, or it inspires people, and you can feel their energy lighting up, and you can feel them surrendering and becoming free. You can feel it. It's an energetic sensation. And when you can feel that, that is a similar sensation as when, we're making love with our spouse. And so if you have an issue, if there's a control issue, it will absolutely show up in the bedroom. There's a control issue even on the other side of not respecting boundaries. So this is something that I find really interesting. So on the opposite side of that, like maybe not being able to orgasm, or having resistance around sex in general, or the desires that you have. I have a lot of couples that come to me that one has a desire and the other one maybe isn't matched up to it, but there's a deeper root cause to why this desire is coming up in the body. And because the mind can only go from the past, and because our mind doesn't really actually know what we want, there's only an idea in there of what we want. Our brain is getting hardwired with every emotional sensation that we're experiencing, and it's attaching it to our thoughts around that emotion. So if you have an emotional resistance around pleasure, the pleasure sensation, the mind may start to latch on to things in the physical world that it thinks will create that same desire, that will create that same sensation or that same feeling. And so what we do is we go in deep into the subconscious mind, and I can tell by the language people are using, and I can feel in my body when somebody has resistance that they're maybe not aware of. And so when that's happening, what ends up going on is we assume that what we're desiring is wrong or bad or whatever. And so when we are giving and receiving, it's important to understand that we only can interpret what we're feeling to the level that our consciousness has been upgraded. If you haven't upgraded and done the work to shift your belief systems that are limiting you from understanding yourself, then you're going to think that your desire is one thing when essentially it is actually something else. There's a deeper drive, or there's a deeper desire there, and the mind can only attach it to one thing. And I see this a lot with porn. And I'm not saying anything negative about porn, because I don't have a negative energy around it or to anything really in the world. It's all about perception. There's good and bad about everything. But a lot of the time people go there because they are afraid of really surrendering with another human being. And that has to do with inner trust issues. It has to do with being able to allow yourself to see what it is that you're really desiring. Because when we talk about this in every video, somewhere along the lines, you were shamed or made to feel guilty about a desire you had. And then when you pick up on society having resistance around a certain topic, it could be sex, it could be money, it could be anything. And so now your subconscious mind is paying attention, and it's thinking that you need to be protected, and that you need to take on these same belief systems so that you can fit in, and so that you aren't ostracized, and so you aren't put out of the herd. I work with horses, so I talk about the herd mentality a lot. So what we lose sight of is that when you're connected to that inner compass, all of those things happen organically. It isn't forced. It isn't made to happen. You can't force an orgasm. You can't make yourself have one. Maybe you can, but it's not going to be very pleasurable. I can tell you that right now. So it's the same thing when you're manifesting. If it's not allowed to flow in you and through you, then there's a resistance. There's a belief system deep inside your subconscious programming that's actually preventing you from surrendering. because there's something inside of you that there's a trust issue with your inner compass that says, if I trust myself, then I'm going to be sabotaged from the external world. I'm going to be ostracized. I'm going to be kicked out of the family or whatever it is. And people aren't going to be able to handle who I am, who I truly am. I hear that almost every day. And I hear people tell me almost every day that they've never said this desire that they have to anybody else, or they've never talked about the dreams that they have with anybody else, or they haven't thought about these certain things. And that's because they can feel the resistance coming from the other person. So that's the next level of, being spiritually connected, is once you're connected to yourself in that way, maybe you've given yourself permission to, fully surrender. If the other person has belief systems in there that they're resisting, once you begin to feel, now it's going to flip-flop. Because on the other side of it, now you're going to be able to feel their resistance. You're going to be able to feel their, limiting beliefs. And if you haven't developed your spiritual language yet, and you haven't really tapped into that emotional intelligence so you can move out of the head and into the heart and let that freestyle creating happen to give you the language to communicate in that moment, it's going to cause conflict. It's immediately going to cause conflict. And the reason why is because when we have conflict, it illuminates what's not working. It illuminates that there's something going on that is not in alignment with your inner truth. And so I bring this topic to the table because it's a really easy way to see where you have limiting belief systems in your body. And one of those around men and women having different perspectives. I'm not going to dive into that right now because that's a deeper conversation. But understand that it's the masculine and feminine energy. A man or a woman can be channeling the divine masculine or the divine feminine in either role in the bedroom. It doesn't have to be one way or the other. And that entire thing will unfold organically. The entire lovemaking scenario will unfold organically when both of you are in alignment with your divine masculine and feminine. If either one of you is out of alignment and out of balance, what's going to happen is there's going to be resistance, there's going to be conflict, and there's going to be a lack somewhere in your reality. There's going to be a lack of ability to manifest. So if any of this resonates with you, or if you have questions about any of it, please reach out, because this is not something that this isn't something that we should be ashamed of or afraid of. Now my kids are coming out here. So I hope the rest of you guys have an amazing day. I plan on enjoying my time with my family, and I will see you guys in the next video. I love you.